Welcome back to Green is Good, and I'm so honored to have my friend, the co-founder of Peacefood Café, Peter Liu. He's on with us today. Welcome to Green is Good, Peter.
Hey, John, how are you?
We are great today, Peter. And this is such a special day for me personally because you are so important to my family's life here in New York City. We love your food. We love your restaurant. We love you and your partner, Eric. And we're just so thankful that you're here serving the New York metropolitan area and sharing the good word of veganism and plant food-based diets. And so thank you for being on the show to share your story today.
Well, we love to share our story, and we love you as our customers.
Peter, share a little bit about you and Eric and how, where you've come from, how you, where you were on your journey historically, what you've done before leading up to this great restaurant chain you've built here in Manhattan, and then how you got to where you are today.
Okay, so, well, we are both from Hong Kong, and, we've lived here in New York since, the early 80s, so it's like pushing, or maybe even over 30 years now.
Wow.
So we've been partners for 20 years, and Eric, used to be an antique dealer for 20 years.
Yeah.
And he did have a degree on hospitality management, which was back in, the 80s when he was going to college. And me, I am an interior design, I have been in that profession for over 20 years. And, and we kind of stumble into this as to open Peacefood in 2008. Kind of an accidental, but, purposefully.
Yeah.
We did that because if you remember the 2008, market crash.
Yes.
His antique business was dwindling down, and and he finally closed shop, and he spent a lot of time thinking what we should do, in the next chapter of our life, and in a way that we thought, and at the time that we already became vegan. Eric became a vegetarian probably, a little before I did, and I soon became a vegetarian afterwards, in 2001. And then we've been vegetarian for probably 6-7 years, and then we turned vegan because we kind of learned about the milk industry, how bad it was, and how the animals were treated,
right?
And eventually they will be put to death as well,
right?
So that doesn't make any difference if you're eating meat or you're eating an egg or milk. I mean, actually the farm animals that are in the milk industry, they probably go through a lot more sufferings because of they have to produce milk or they have to produce eggs, and all that, and eventually they still have to be slaughtered and all that. So
who brought you that information? Did you read a book? Was it nowadays famous books like the China Study and Forks Over Knives, or was this some friends that shared this information with you?
Actually, I stumbled into a few podcasts. These podcasters, also do this wonderful work of spreading the truth about veganism. And and one of my heroes was Colleen Patrick Goudreau, who owns a CompassionateCooks.com, who has been podcasting for almost 5 years.
Right.
And I kind of learned that from her podcast, and I said to Eric, I said, being vegetarian is just not quite enough.
Right.
It's we have to live up to the truth. And we kind of turned vegan. We decided to turn vegan, and just swear off all the dairy products.
Right.
By 2007. So at the time of 2008, after he closed shop. So back to the story.
Sure.
We thought that doing a vegan restaurant is true to ourselves.
Right.
And it will sort of spread the message about veganism to people. So we looked around in New York City. I mean, there was our first restaurant. We never had a restaurant before.
Wow.
I mean, ever. It was a brand new project, and We looked and looked and looked, and it was not a very easy thing to do because first is the market was not really, it was just after the 2008, bubble burst, in the stock market and all that. So we looked around, and it wasn't easy because first of all, it was our first business. Second of all, the landlord, when they hear that you're opening a vegan restaurant, said, you probably won't be making much money, and, why am I, giving you the lease? So anyway, it took us like a long time to find a space, and, we found the space which we have our first restaurant is on Amsterdam Avenue, on the Upper West Side.
Right.
And then it took probably another 6 months to put the restaurant together with very little money, and we just started from there. And Eric was like really, he was like the soul of the restaurant at the time because I was still having my interior design job. I didn't resign until we opened up the second restaurant.
Oh.
Yeah.
So you opened up the restaurant, and back in 2009, what was the response like for two new restaurateurs on this journey? Still, at the beginning of this whole vegan revolution, what was the response like for your neighborhood and for the surrounding area?
It was great. I mean, it was a very slow start. I mean, it took at least a year to kind of like get out of the red. I mean, on the business.
Sure.
So we just kind of like, put our hearts into it, especially Eric, because he was really running the restaurant at the time. Right. And he would do everything, from buying the stuff, from, hiring the people, working in the kitchen, ran into the kitchen and cooked something or make the soup in the morning. I mean, he was like tireless, basically for the first year. And I just kind of supported him, on the side. I was doing all the book works and all the administrative work and all.
You're humble. A partnership is a partnership, and everybody's doing an important role. You're very humble. So is Eric, by the way. And for our listeners out there, we're so honored to have today with us the co-founder of Peacefood Café, Peter Liu, and to learn more about his amazing and delicious restaurant and the great food that they serve, go to www.peacefoodcafe.com. How did you come up with the name? How did you and Eric come up with the name?
Oh, that was great. Oh, well, we had like this farm sanctuary, Woodstock Farm Animal Sanctuary in Woodstock.
Sure.
And they always have this like kind of a slogan on the T-shirts that peace begins on your plate.
Oh, that's
so
wonderful.
we kind of like, wow, that sounds really true, I mean, when you think about it, when people are saying, we want peace, but we still keep eating all this meat. And
You're right.
So, I mean, not in the sense of like, just to harm the animal, but imagine that all the animals like going through this like state of fear when they are being slaughtered, and the kind of energy that was like left on the piece of meat that somebody's going to be eating, it's not a very good thing. That kind of like will kind of like affect your whole well-being. I think is
right.
If you know what I'm trying to say.
Sure.
So we think that peace begins with your plate. It's a really good message. So we kind of like pair like peace and food together.
Oh.
Peace, food should be peaceful. So peace food, and then we kind of like combine it together. We think that it should be one word instead of like two. So
right.
It's food should be peaceful. So
love it.
Food, yeah.
I love it, and that's a beautiful statement. Peace begins on your plate. I never even heard that before. That's
right.
That is just wonderful. And for our listeners out there, I'm on Peter's website right now. Like I said earlier, the website is www.peacefoodcafe.com. My family goes to Peter's restaurant and Eric's restaurant all the time. He has now 2 restaurants, and we'll talk about that in a little while. But for people who think veganism is just for granola eating, kale eating, hippies, this is the furthest thing from the truth. Peter and Eric have created food that is so mainstream and so delicious that everybody there's always a line out the door, and there's a bakery, and the baked goods are every person I've ever brought to your restaurant loves everything they've put in their mouth, and they just can't even tell the difference between your baked goods and any mainstream baked goods in terms of the sugar and the fats that are in typical baked goods. Your cakes, cookies, pies, and scones are world class.
Yeah, I have to thank you. I mean, I have to thank all the people who has worked with Peace Foods, especially these bakery chefs that we have, and they are all vegan, and they create these wonderful recipes. They probably veganize most of the memorable desserts that or pastries that we have, and the kind of ingredients that we use are very good ingredients, and they're not processed sugar or anything. I mean, we use very natural ingredients such as maple syrup and agave and coconut meat, and that type of thing. And also on the food end, Eric is actually the creator of the menu. He actually created all the menu based on the type of food that both of us liked. And so it kind of a very diversified type of menu. It's something that that people can come in any time of the day, and they can find something that they can have. It doesn't really matter what time of the day it is. So we want the place to be kind of home-like, that you can kind of just walk into Peace Food and feel like that you're in somebody's home or in somebody's kitchen, and then you can just open the refrigerator and just grab anything that you want, that type of a feeling.
Well, you've succeeded, because I know the first time I ever walked into Peace Food was after the hurricane last year hit, and you were the first and only restaurant open literally in New York that we walked the streets and drove the streets, and we came into the first place that and it was just like being home. It was like everyone was happy. Your staff was so loving. Of course, Eric greeted everybody as always, and the food was amazing.
Yes, I remember.
Right?
Hurricane Sandy, and we were slammed the whole week because downtown they had an electrical problem that I think anything below 14th Street was just completely out of electricity for like a week or something. So I think the migration of all the downtown people and and a lot of other neighborhood people really made our restaurant, very successful that week. We were slammed from, when we opened until, the end of the night. I think we closed for one day, and then Eric said, we have to open. There's people that out there that's probably looking for food and all that.
It's true.
Yeah.
And you guys did, and it was just the best experience. And let's talk a little bit about, Peter, the ethical, health, and environmental issues that surround and are benefited from veganism. Can you share with the listeners your view on these issues?
Oh, yeah, sure. First of all, let's talk about the environmental issues. That we do a lot of things these days, like we recycle, we conserve on the fuel and the water, and and improve on transportation and all that. But it is really not quite enough. But we just forgot something that that is so simple to do, is to actually just to choose a vegan diet, which basically the vegan diet is something that can help us, just because of the livestock industry creates a lot of waste, And
the whole meat industry and all those industries create all sorts of carbon
no,
footprint.
they actually created a lot of the waste is like 18% of the methane that came out. That is basically, they were calculated in the equivalence of the of carbon dioxide.
Wow.
So, and also the waste management that will, there's poor waste management, and the amount of like manure that all these farm animal excrete, it's far beyond our imagination.
Wow.
And it leaks into our bodies of water and land. And also it is very, very inefficient to grow crops to feed the farm animal, and then in turn that people will eat the meat of the farm animal. It is not just a very sustainable way to live. So by choosing a vegan diet, then we can skip all this, and then the crops that that grow can feed the hungry, and then we don't have to deforestate. We don't have to have so much land that are being deforested, just for additional like more animal grazing and all that. All in all, is just very good for the environment.
And since 2009, have you seen a shift in consciousness in terms of both society and even just the local community that you serve? Are the lines getting longer, or is there a more diverse crowd coming into your restaurants?
I think people are starting to open up about veganism.
Yep.
First of all, I must say that vegan diet is not a fad diet. It's
right.
Something that it's already been there for years. It's just, people don't really want to face it. People are so busy, and, they might not, they hear, this message about veganism, and they might not be able to, kind of like spend the time and kind of like think about it. So, our purpose to be there, as a restaurant is to just kind of give them a reminder that these foods are really good for you and they're delicious, and it's sort of like an incentive for them to even to go a little further to think about what veganism is all about. So after we have opened for the Uptown location for almost over 4 years, it's actually 4.5 years now.
Right.
And we do feel that people are lot more open to the idea to come into the restaurant, and they just like the food. It doesn't really matter if it's vegan or not. It's good food. And once they kind of break down that barrier that they think that vegan food is like, oh yeah,
right.
So they will kind of like look into what veganism is all about.
Hey, and by the way, Peter, you're very humble. You and Eric are both very humble. The food is great. The lines are long, and there's a very mixed crowd in there. This is a businessmen, businesswomen, young people, older people. I've seen rock stars in there. I've seen celebrities in there, and it's a very democratized location. Everyone is treated and loved the same and enjoys the food just as much. We're down to the last minute or so. Talk a little bit, two things, Peter. Talk a little bit about opening your second location, where that is, and then the future of Peace Food, and then we're going to have to sign off for today.
Okay, well, the second location is on 11th Street, East 11th Street, between Broadway and University Place.
Right.
And actually, the reason why we actually didn't really pick that location, but I have a little story to tell.
Go on.
Basically, I turned vegetarian on September 11, 2001.
Oh.
And I was standing at that corner, and I had a view of the World Trade Tower coming down.
I never heard this.
I turned vegetarian that day because I do not want to contribute to more sufferings, to more like loss of life. So there, again, not just to the human, but also to the animal. So
that's a great story.
It's sort of like we didn't even know, but when we looked for the second location, we just found this, on the website, and then we went over there, and it was like, on East 11th Street. And that's, it's a familiar spot. So we didn't even look at any other space, and then, we just kind of signed the lease. I mean, the second time was a lot easier because, you know, we already had, you know, some reputation on the establishment.
Right.
You know, we got the space right away. So under probably 6-7 months of like construction, and then we opened the door in March, you know, 2012.
Wow.
I mean, 2013. I'm sorry. Yeah, this year. Yeah.
Wonderful. And I know I've been there many times. We celebrated my 50th birthday there. For our listeners out there, you should go and enjoy Peter and Eric's two great restaurants, Peacefood Café, uptown and downtown now. It's www.peacefoodcafe.com. Peace does begin on your plate. Peter Liu, you are a visionary leader in the vegan food revolution and truly living proof that green is good.